What's up, horror fam? Welcome back to the channel. So for today's episode, we are covering off on episode 3 of Dexter Original Sin, and the title of this episode is Miami Vice. Now, we are going to be going over spoilers for this review and summary, so if you have not seen episode 3 or even seen episodes 1 or 2, again, it's going to be heavy spoilers, so just be aware. Now, we're not going to go over detail by detail, scene by scene of this episode. We're just going to call out some of the core things that we took away from this episode that do add a bit more to the story, a bit more to what's been happening in episode 1 and episode 2. So this episode picks up with a press conference by the captain discussing Jimmy. Jimmy is the child of Judge Powell, who has been kidnapped, which is, now we have learned since episode 2, is the overarching story for this particular series or season. Again, as I've mentioned, I feel this is going to be a one and done series because we do know we are getting Dexter Resurrection in mid 2025, which is supposed to be a fast follower series to this one. So I don't see this prequel series continuing after this particular season or this set of 10 episodes. Again, as I mentioned, we're just going to go over some of the additional high points here. So as I mentioned in my episode 1 and 2 summaries, the Deborah and Harry characters are very much going to be and will remain supporting characters of the rest of the episodes, and rightfully so, they should. This is a Dexter prequel series. It's going to be focusing on Dexter, on pretty much how he came to be who we've seen him become in the original Dexter series. So while they don't play an overarching pivotal impact and role, they do here and there add some substance to what we know, to what has happened to Dexter, and looking back on his history in the original series. For example, with Harry. Harry so far in the first 3 episodes, and we see it again even more so in this one, is we see more flashbacks of Harry than we do present time Harry. So a lot of the flashbacks are of him and his partner, and we continue to see that relationship that when he met Laura, and then how she became a CI and how their relationship has developed thus far through 3 episodes, and Laura being Dexter's mom. And with Deborah, she's still in high school. We're seeing how she's adapting to, one, her mother no longer being around, and Harry and Dexter having a closer relationship and really excluding her. So we're seeing that play out, a little bit of that rebellious teenager in this first 3 episodes, and even more so here in this episode, where she again is trying to garner the attention of Harry, realizing she's not going to get it, and he tries to at one point apologize for that. It doesn't land well. Deborah doesn't really take to it and really just pushes him away even a bit further. Harry realizes that, but not much he can really do at that point, or at least not much he can do thus far through the 3 episodes that we've seen. Now that may change as these episodes continue. Will they become closer? We don't know, but that is something that could change. So now for Dexter's character, we see him picking up where he left off in episode 2, surveilling Tony. Tony is the killer of the mother that we were introduced to by Bautista through the story of the busboy who works at the restaurant. Now we find Dexter breaking into Tony's home, looking for clues as he thinks Tony has returned home, and come to find out Tony hasn't returned home while he was searching for clues. Tony has a parrot that can talk, so that startled Dexter a bit. And then while he comes across this bird, he comes across the ledger with the list of people that owe Tony money. Now this is now in this evidence, he comes across the names of the mother and the busboy that he needed, that Bautista told him about in order to make that linkage. We did talk about in episode 2 where Dexter has been looking at cold cases, came across the information for this particular case. Now, one more piece of information that Dexter needs is proof as far as a direct link outside of the ledger. Now, Dexter finds himself at a pool hall, knowing that Tony's going to be there, and makes sure that Tony sees him betting on a game of pool. Dexter loses. Tony takes him outside, threatens him, and actually pulls out a weapon, discharges that weapon. Dexter knowingly was hoping for this to happen. You can tell that was the intent. Dexter digs the bullet out of the tree that was behind him, does the comparison to the evidence that is on file, makes the direct linkage that it is the same gun that was used in the killing of the mother that we were told about, of the busboy who eventually took his own life based on the amount of guilt from the decisions that he made. Now, with all this information, Dexter goes to Harry, lets Harry know this is the next person. He needs to fulfill this urge. Now, Harry initially says he can't do anything further without him, keeping him in the dark, and that he needs to be there with him. Dexter tells him absolutely not, that Harry should not be involved. He needs to do this on his own. After some, pausing and going a little bit back and forth, Harry does agree to allow Dexter to proceed on his own, in which he does. So Dexter goes back to the house, waits for Tony to show up. And again, we're still in that early stages of Dexter where he truly has a process to disable his victims. Like he did with Nurse Mary, he attacks them. There's a scuffle. And then this one was a bit more of a scuffle. Obviously, it almost seemed like Tony was going to get the upper hand on him. But Dexter manages to knock him out. And then we find him at a highlight court. And if you don't know what highlight is, it was a sport in the late 80s, early 90s. It wasn't around that long. I would recommend just Googling it. It is shown here in these early episodes of the series. So that's the name of the sport that is being played when Dexter first comes across Tony, introduces him and to get the loan for the money. That's the name of the sport. So he gets him on this highlight court, and this is where we go through that very normal process that Dexter has of not hiding who he is, telling them what this person has done, and dispatches of Tony. Now, the key thing though here and how this episode ends, we find that Dexter now dismembers Tony's body, unlike Nurse Mary. With Nurse Mary in the original episode, takes her out to Gator Alley, pushes the body out there, and the body is disposed of. But in this episode, he dismembers the body a bit, takes it to Gator Alley, and puts the pieces out into the water, and the gators start to devour. But as Dexter is leaving, the camera angle goes right back to the water, and we see one of Tony's arms float to the top, and they focused on a ring. It looked like a pinky ring that was on Tony's hand, and Dexter doesn't realize this. I think in this next episode, maybe episode 4 or 5, this arm someone's going to find this arm, and it's going to get turned in. It's going to be found out as whose it is, as far as the fingerprints or the ring will give it away that it is Tony. Harry's going to find out about it. Obviously, Dexter will find out about it, and then it's going to be a matter of what other evidence has Dexter not disposed of. Now, in this episode, when he did that, he also threw the earrings that he managed to get back from Sophia that Deborah stole from him previously, and he threw those in the water. I have a feeling, because if you remember in episode 1, Dexter mentioned when he took those earrings, the talkover that Michael C. Hall did, he said that he would come to regret taking those earrings. Now, I think what's going to happen is once they find this arm or this hand or pinky ring and they realize who it is, they're going to search that water and they're going to find those earrings. And Dexter will now realize there again that the evidence for that has also been found. And they may be able to then link those earrings back to the fact that Nurse Mary all of a sudden went missing. And again, that's where the episode pretty much ends off. I don't want to go over into, again, scene by scene of this. If you want to see that, I would just recommend go watch the episode. I think, in my opinion, episode 3 definitely has picked up from my initial opinions of episode 1. Episode 1, again, it being the first episode, it's setting the tone, it's setting the foundation of these characters. I am glad to see that we are getting now, even early on, more information about what the overarching story is and what the characters what roles they're going to play, as far as like Harry and Deborah. Loguerta just came into the fold, so we'll see how that character develops. The captain's very untrusting of her. Don't know if she's going to undermine him in a way to move him out. And Batista is already taking an interest into Loguerta. Now, we do know from the original series that those two did become partners. Now, as far as we know, there was no romantic relationship between them in the early days. Now, we do know, obviously, in the original series, they eventually got married and got divorced, but in the early on days, it never mentioned if there was ever any romantic relationship between them. And Masuka's being very much, again, a very background character. We saw him a little bit, not much in this episode or in episode 2, outside of just helping Dexter with the fake ID. So I think that in my opinion, 3 episodes in, it's definitely started to pick up. We have 7 more episodes to go. I think this could turn out to be better than what we had initially anticipated in the episode 1 review and summary. And as I mentioned, I can be swayed. My opinions can be changed. My opinion can be turned if they do pick up the story, in which I feel like they've already started to do that. They're not wasting any time. My only concern now is within episode 4. Typically, in any series or season of a show, especially if it's a limited one, episode 4 and usually half of episode 5 turn out to be filler episodes. They don't amount to much. They don't add much to the story. If they were removed, it wouldn't impact the overall story in any way, shape, or form. I don't see that happening here, only because, again, we have the overarching story of the child Jimmy, and they still need to play on that story. They need to keep that one progressing, even though what's going on with Dexter can take us, can go on to the sideline, so to speak. Dexter doesn't have to have a victim every single episode. They could take episode 4, focus on that particular overarching case, proceed with that one a bit further, and then, move on with whatever Dexter is doing. Now, I could also see in episode 4 where, again, this arm of Tony is found, the earrings are found, and we don't see Dexter having any more victims for maybe 2 or 3 episodes, because now he's trying to cover his tracks along with Harry, trying to make sure Dexter doesn't get caught. So those are my predictions for episode 4. We will find out here in a few days when that episode drops. So let us know what you think. If you've seen episode 3, what are your thoughts on it? Do you agree with us? Don't agree with us? Especially how episode 4 could play out. Are you enjoying the show thus far, 3 episodes in? And also, do you think this is going to be a limited run? I think it is. I don't see them proceeding outside these 10 episodes, because we know we're getting Dexter Resurrection as a fast follower to this. So even if this is a successful run, I don't see them continuing with the focus on Dexter. Now, they might do a prequel series on maybe another character, but none of the other characters are really that interesting. For example, I don't see them doing a prequel series on Batista or LaGuerta, Masuka, any of these other characters. And with Harry, it wouldn't make sense, because as I've already mentioned, very much of Harry's role in this are the flashbacks between him and Dexter's mom. So that wouldn't make sense either, especially since we know in the original series, Harry has been dead for quite some time. So no need to really proceed with that storyline any further. All right, everyone, that's going to do it for today. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to the channel, and we will see you at the next one. Peace.